Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a relationship, only to find yourself dismissed, ignored, and gaslighted, while your partner showers attention on someone new? Imagine reaching your breaking point, deciding to walk away, and then, by a twist of fate, stumbling upon the truth that not only vindicates you but exposes your ex for the truly deceitful person he was. This is the story of a young woman, caught in a web of emotional infidelity, who found her strength, stood her ground, and eventually, got the last laugh. And before we dive into this wild ride of betrayal and ultimate vindication, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment for more Reddit stories. Our story begins with a woman, let's call her Sarah, who at 22, was living with her 24-year-old boyfriend, Mark. They'd been together for about a year and a half, having met at work, and seemed to have a good thing going. Like any couple, they had their ups and downs, but a recent move-in and financial stresses had definitely put them through a bit of a rough patch. However, the real storm was brewing not from money woes, but from a new addition to Mark's workplace, his work girlfriend. Sarah and Mark worked for the same company, but in different locations. Mark was an assistant manager who often floated between stores, filling in wherever needed. But 3 days a week, he was based out of a particular store. About a month before Sarah shared her story, a new girl, let's call her Chloe, transferred into that very store from a different state. She worked alongside Mark for those 3 days, meaning they spent a lot of time together, often just the two of them and one other person. At first, their communication outside of work was strictly work-related. Sarah, being pretty relaxed about phone privacy with Mark, would occasionally see their messages. But then, she noticed a shift. The text started veering into personal territory, hobbies, interests, just general chit-chat. Sarah initially brushed it off, understanding that Chloe was new to the state and likely didn't know many people outside of work. She told herself it was just Mark being friendly. But then came the undeniable red flag. Sarah was a huge Snapchat user, primarily using it as her main social media platform. For ages, she'd been begging Mark to download it, only to be met with his dismissive argument that it was a waste of time. So imagine her shock, her absolute gut punch, when she saw that he had not only downloaded Snapchat but that Chloe was his #1 best friend, and they were on an 8-day snapping streak. The very app he deemed worthless for her, he'd embraced for someone else. When Sarah confronted him, he merely shrugged it off, claiming it wasn't a big deal. Already stressed by their financial situation, Sarah didn't want to push the issue. A part of her wondered if she was just being insecure, admitting that Chloe was stunning, and perhaps a touch of jealousy was clouding her judgment. She tried to convince herself she was overreacting. That self-doubt, however, was about to be shattered. One day, Chloe's name popped up on Mark's phone. Sarah, curiosity piqued, opened the message. What she read made her blood boil. Mark had agreed to pick Chloe up from the airport on Sunday. The same Sunday they had plans to go to Sarah's family party, an hour and a half away from the airport. Not only was he ditching her family, but he told Sarah he was planning to leave the party early so he could pick Chloe up, and then they could hang out afterward. When Sarah questioned him, he repeated the familiar refrain, "It's not a big deal." He insisted Chloe had no romantic interest in him, that he was just being nice because she was new. He accused Sarah of overreacting. But Sarah was livid. She knew, deep down, that this was not normal, not okay. She ended her post asking the internet, was she in the wrong? The internet, as you can imagine, resoundingly told her no, she was not. Armed with a renewed sense of conviction, Sarah sat down with Mark the morning after posting. She laid it all out, her feelings about his overly flirtatious, suspicious behavior with Chloe, and the absolute unacceptability of him agreeing to pick Chloe up from the airport and ditching her family without even telling her. Mark, unknowingly, looked annoyed. But eventually, he admitted it. He had developed a crush on Chloe. And then, he dropped the bombshell that would shatter Sarah's world. He confessed Chloe was the opposite of me and fun and easy to talk to, while Sarah, apparently, wasn't. He even went so far as to say Chloe put effort into her appearance and Sarah didn't. The audacity, the cruelty of it all, was too much. Sarah was devastated, heartbroken, and utterly furious. She refused to speak to him, gathered her things, and left for her best friend's house for the night. Mark didn't even text or call. That silence spoke volumes. Her best friend and her boyfriend were absolutely incredible. They ordered wings, watched movies, and offered an invaluable perspective. They'd never really liked Mark, sensing he was always lukewarm towards Sarah, as if she were just a friend. Sarah reflected on advice her mom had given her after a bad breakup when she was younger: never settle for someone who didn't look at you like you put the stars in the sky. Seeing the genuine love and respect between her best friend and her boyfriend, and realizing how little effort Mark put into their year-and-a-half relationship compared to his crush, a profound clarity washed over her. She was better off alone than with someone who couldn't see her worth. The next morning, Sarah returned home. Mark was sitting on the couch, completely unfazed. "Are you feeling better?" he asked. "Do you still need more space?" His questions, so detached and devoid of real concern, solidified her decision. She calmly told him she wanted to break up and would be moving out soon, offering to pay her half of next month's rent. Mark didn't even flinch. He simply nodded and got up to leave. Sarah tried to maintain her composure, but seeing his nonchalant reaction, her stoic facade crumbled. She didn't know if he went to pick Chloe up that Sunday, but Sarah went to her family's event, attempting to have a good time despite all the questions about Mark's absence. In the days that followed, she began packing and secretly moving her belongings back to her parents' house, carefully choosing times when Mark was at work. They hadn't spoken since the breakup, beyond necessary financial discussions. Sarah was battling the overwhelming urge to unleash her fury, to demand to know why he was so neutral when she was a complete wreck. But she held on to her belief: living well is the best revenge. It sucked, especially at night, but she was determined to keep busy and move forward. And then, just 3 days after her last update, fate intervened with a twist nobody saw coming. Sarah wasn't planning on another update, but this, she said, she had to share. Mark, as you remember, was a floater for their company. It turned out Chloe had become one too. One day, while Sarah was working her shift, Chloe walked in, assigned to fill in for one of Sarah's co-workers. Sarah's heart must have pounded. She initially planned to ignore her, to keep things strictly professional, thinking Chloe probably didn't even recognize her or know who she was. But as the shift went on, and things got slow, they started talking. They exchanged pleasantries, asking general questions about each other. And then, Sarah casually mentioned that she had dated Mark. Chloe's reaction was immediate and genuine shock. She told Sarah that she had absolutely no idea Mark had a girlfriend. She said he always referred to Sarah as his roommate who worked for the same company. Whenever he'd mentioned Sarah's name, Chloe had just assumed he was talking about the roommate. Sarah didn't get the feeling Chloe was lying, her surprise was too real. Pushed to her breaking point, and feeling a surge of vindication, Sarah decided to spill the entire story. She told Chloe everything: the Snapchat betrayal, how he'd refused to download it for her, but then got it for Chloe. Chloe looked apologetic. She explained that she asks everyone for their Snapchat because she prefers it for communicating, and if they don't have it, she tells them to download it. She even showed Sarah her best friends list. Mark wasn't even on it, though his name had the little face icon next to it, indicating he was on her best friends list. Chloe, it turned out, was a massive Snapchatter, with a score of over 30,000. It wasn't about Mark, it was just how she communicated. Then came the airport story. Chloe apologized profusely, saying she would never have asked someone's boyfriend for a ride had she known. And here's the kicker: the only reason she asked Mark was because the guy she was actually dating was out of town. She hadn't mentioned she was in a relationship to Mark because she just didn't like discussing her love life at work. She ended up asking another coworker to pick her up instead. To add another layer of irony, Chloe revealed she'd become a floater herself because another assistant manager at her base store had been getting too flirty with her, and she didn't like it. Chloe then went off, expressing her disgust for guys like Mark and how he had treated Sarah. She realized Mark's niceness to her had actually been a clumsy attempt at flirting, something Sarah, looking back, could now see too, given how bad he was at it. From Sarah's impression, Chloe was genuinely nice and friendly, a natural girl's girl. Sarah no longer held any resentment towards Chloe. Meeting her, hearing the truth directly from the source, was incredibly liberating. It confirmed every gut feeling she'd had. Mark hadn't just emotionally cheated, he'd lied and manipulated, painting Sarah as just a roommate, all while pursuing a woman who was already in a relationship and oblivious to his true intentions. Sarah was almost completely moved out, and after this incredible encounter, she felt a profound sense of peace and vindication about her decision to break up. She still hadn't spoken to Mark, and honestly, she didn't need to. The truth had set her free. This story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the greatest clarity. Sarah trusted her instincts, refused to be gaslighted, and ultimately, found her worth. And in the end, she got the ultimate revenge, living well, and knowing the truth. Have you ever experienced a similar situation where you found out the truth about a toxic ex in an unexpected way? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing tales from Reddit.